Hey, yo. This Shaduer Sanders thing is crazy. Let's get into it. All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Back to the Game Sportscast. I'm your boy and your host, Samuel Maria. And today we got a very special episode coming your way, breaking down one of the hottest sports topics in the year so far. Shaduer Sanders, son of legendary football player Deion Sanders, was just drafted at pick 144 by the Cleveland Browns. Why is this significant? Well, no one thought that Shaduer would drop this far. Now, I wanted to do an episode where I covered this, but as the weekend went on and Shaduer kept dropping, the topic got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought that I would do an episode where I would talk about the NBA playoffs and its progress. A lot of my picks are looking pretty good so far. Celtics dropped one last night, as to be expected. They tend to do this. They play down to the competition sometimes. But the Shaduer Sanders thing just got bigger and bigger. So I decided to make this entire episode about that. So let's get right into it. So my thoughts on Shaduer. The first time I saw Shaduer play was his first week at Colorado. I had heard rumblings about his talent at Jackson State, but I had no way to watch those games. It wasn't until Colorado had that really big splash onto the scene, not this past season, but with the one before. And I saw those first few games where they were like, beating some teams. And I watched Shaduer and I thought, oh man, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. He throws an extremely catchable ball. He's very accurate. He can escape, but he doesn't rely on his athleticism. Comes to turn out he's not that athletic compared to some other guys. He's definitely not no Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes in that sense. But to me, I like that quality in my quarterback. I like pocket quarterbacks. That's just my preference. I grew up rooting for Tom Brady. I think it's optimal for the quarterback to be somewhat limited to perfecting his portion of the game so that everybody else can do theirs to the highest ability. But that's just my opinion. A lot of people love running quarterbacks, and I totally get it. Lamar Jackson is amazing. Patrick Mahomes is amazing. Josh Allen, they're amazing. Amazing players. But I like Shaduer's because I saw a lot of the fundamental things as far as throwing motion, ball placement, footwork in the pocket. I also thought that he was playing with a limited team with a crappy offensive line, limited wide receivers outside of Travis Hunter. And he was doing his thing. And he also had a lot of clutch moments. So I was impressed. And I thought Shaduer Sanders has a great opportunity ahead of him to enhance the Sanders legacy, not just by what his father did, but becoming a high-level, high-caliber starting quarterback in the NFL. Then I saw that he was associated with Tom Brady, so I immediately became a fan. But then the time started weighing on, and Shaduer, while his celebrity kept going up, his NIL money, sponsorships, all of that good stuff, his play started dipping a bit. He wasn't improving like you would want to see a potential prospect improve. And I recall very vividly on an interview when Tom Brady was on his podcast bit. He was on doing the LFG podcast. I would tune in that last year and the year after he retired. He was kind of prepping himself for the booth, it seemed. And it seemed to me that there was this one interview with Deion Sanders, and Shaduer came on, and Tom, praising Deion and then praising Shaduer. He said he worked with him, loved everything he was doing, loved how he saw the game, how he's thinking the game. They kind of poked fun a little bit at the NIL stuff about how spoiled these kids are. Tom talked about how so much of the hardships that he went through at Michigan is what prepared him for what he wound up becoming in the NFL. And they poked a little fun because, Shaduer is coming up on campus with a, brand new Maybach and all this other stuff. And you could hear it a little bit in Tom's voice that he wasn't a big fan of that. But Tom is not really one to be too confrontational. He kept it cordial. It was a great conversation with some great athletes, some legendary players. And, the Sanders bravado and confidence was obvious. And at that time, Shaduer was really shining on the field. But that was the first time that I was like, something might be a little off here. So fast forward to the draft process. I haven't much kept up with the draft, but the Shaduer things tends to be in the headlines quite a bit. It appeared that he wasn't interviewing well. Before that, his dad was very vocal about wanting to be drafted to certain teams. And Shaduer seemed to, like, every time I looked, Shaduer was in a commercial or, doing something like that. And then came draft night. And the first round came and went, and Shaduer's name was not called. And, the second round came and went, and Shaduer's name is not called again. And the awkward part about that was that he was very vocal about not going to the combine, about not doing certain things. Then he was also vocal about not attending the actual NFL draft, which was in Green Bay, the first time it was ever on this new site. And the NFL clearly wanted to make it a big deal. And Shaduer opted that his own party was a better choice. Now, a lot of players do this. You see it all the time, gather with family and friends and, significant others. But the way Shaduer communicated that he wasn't attending the draft was the same way it kind of came off, where he didn't want to do the combat. It almost just felt like he felt he was better than that. That was just my initial feeling on it. Then when I saw it, it's like this whole rented out place, and it's decorated by some marketing team. Clearly there's like legendary signs that says brand, I guess, all over the place, which I think you haven't even played an NFL game. The word legend is something you earn, not something you name yourself. I don't think if today Shaduer Sanders does not ever play an NFL snap, he is not by any means a legend. So he comes from a legendary family, and he has a legendary father, and he has the makings of a potential legend. But to me, a bit of a reach in naming your branding around that. It came off a little bit out of touch. So it was the combination of all of these things that I think, along with the dipping of Shaduer's play, where it seemed like a lot of people had him as a backup at best. Not me personally. I actually like Shaduer's skill set, and I think that he can work with his skill set. I mean, my favorite quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, was not the most exceptional prospect by any means. However, it seems that the overconfidence, along with the subpar, according to many experts and a lot of people who interviewed him and watched his tape over the last year, the subpar performances and ability, they just weren't going together. I think you can be someone who's still developing, who's not necessarily where you should be or would want a prospect to be. But if your mentality, your humility, your work ethic, your priority on football, on the sport is sky high, then you go with that. And even that, I mean, that's Tom Brady was picked in the 6th round. Lamar Jackson, dropped to 32. So I think the biggest thing here is I'm not sure that Deion Sanders did his son any favors. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to draw a weird analogy, I'm going to get a little biblical on you guys, but maybe that makes me stand out from the other podcasts out there. But I recently was hearing the story of Moses when he struck the rock for the water. And well, the story goes that Israel was getting a little desperate. They all wanted water, and they're coming to Moses clamoring. Now, at this point, Moses is a certified G. He is talked to by God. He's taken Israel out of Egypt. He's led them down, and they're on their way to the promised land, and they meet some hardship, and Israel starts questioning everything. They're thirsty. They're hungry. They have nothing. And they ask Moses, go talk to God, dude, because we don't know what to do. So Moses go talk to God, tells him his people are thirsty, and God's like, cool, here's what I need you to do. Go and talk to that rock. And when you talk to that rock, water is going to come out. And so Moses is like, dope, I'm going to do that. And when he goes, he bypasses exactly what God told him to do. And he instead uses the staff, the famous staff that he has throughout his journey out of Egypt, leading the Israelis out of Egypt. And he strikes the rock, and the rock cracks. And God says, since you disobeyed me and didn't spoke my word to the rock and had faith that I was going to be able to do what I said I was going to do, instead you stroked the rock, you won't get to see the promised land. The people will get there, but you will fall short. And sure enough, the story goes that Moses died before Israel could enter the next phase of headed towards the promised land. The reason why that story comes to mind is because I think Deion has disserviced Shaduer specifically at this stage in trying to implement the mentality that served him into his son. And there's different reasons why that doesn't work. One, I think for Deion, rag to riches story, coming from the bottom, that sort of bravado, bordering on arrogance, serves you. You need it because there's so much against you. There's so much that is working against you that you have to use anything you can to make sure that you are always playing at an all-time confidence level. The other side of it is Deion also played a different position, a position known on the makeup of an NFL team to need some sort of outwardly flamboyant confidence and hubris. The cornerback position. Now, his son is neither a cornerback, he's a quarterback, and he's not coming from the bottom. So when you equip your son with an over-arrogance, an overconfidence, and he's a person who comes from mostly privilege, let's admit it, don't think Shaduer has ever had to struggle for anything, really, and kudos to him because he's turned himself into a heck of a player despite that, and it served him thus far as what he could become. But at that next level, he was going to if he walked into an NFL locker room as a first or second round pick, highly touted, and came in with that Deion Sanders energy, I don't think that was going to land quite well on an NFL locker room, because most NFL locker rooms are made up of guys like Deion, who came from nothing, who are breaking generational barriers by being in that locker room. And yeah, there are a few pedigree guys, but even those guys don't come from the notoriety and the showmanship, and then the legacy, and then the actual privilege that Shaduer comes from. And so in equipping his son with that bravado, it was tainted at best because it's clearly manufactured. It's not organic. You're just Deion's mini-me. You're not yourself. Because no one who grows up in privilege, if they have their head on straight has this mentality of like, I'm better than it. Like if they're smart, they're humble about it. They're humble about it. And that's one side where I think Deion failed Shaduer. And I think that's the Deion's moment of striking the rock instead of speaking to it, thinking that the force that it took for him to get to the top and become a legend was exactly what his son needed. And that's just not true. On top of that, the second hand of it is that Shaduer is a quarterback. The quarterback position is entirely different than the cornerback position. The cornerback position is like the sniper on the Army team. Although he is part of the whole crew, he's usually on an island by himself. And his job is totally dependent on his own ability. The quarterback, despite having the most control, is entirely dependent on everybody around them. And if the quarterback is too self-involved, then he can't possibly lead the entire team. And then when you think of the quarterback position, right? Where is the quarterback placed? He's usually placed behind everyone else. There's only one other person behind him. It's usually the running back. And now in today's offenses, he's usually right by his side to protect him as well. The quarterback leads from behind. His job is to see the entire picture. The mentality in which Shaduer was exhibiting leading up to the draft, there's nothing wrong with it. But it just isn't necessarily the best fit for a starting quarterback in the league, let alone someone who's displaying the skills of a backup quarterback. And I am a fan of Shaduer. I think he, skill-wise, belongs in the NFL and is probably going to wind up being a starter. But I just didn't like the optics. Deion Sanders, we're not going to play for so-and-so team. Yeah, people are like, well, what about Archie Manning with Eli and blah, blah, blah. There is some truth to that. However, Eli was a much better prospect than Shaduer. And as far as what he had accomplished in college and what he was showing, and it showed. Eli was a starting quarterback that won 2 Super Bowls. The verdict is still on Shaduer. And his brother was already established quarterback, and his dad was an established quarterback. While Deion Sanders is a legend in the game, he wasn't a legendary quarterback. So I don't know if he gets the same cachet in that way. On top of that, it was disappointing for me because I followed Deion in his NFL Network days, and he was a huge Tom Brady fan. That's why I kind of fell in love with Deion the analyst, because when everybody was hating on Tom Brady, Deion always came to the defense about how Tom Brady handled himself, how he led his team, how he put team first. I was surprised to see Deion not have the self-awareness to try to get his son to emulate that demeanor instead of his own, which I don't think serves the place that Deion is about to, that Shaduer is about to take in the NFL. And I think, this parallels a little bit the whole LeBron and Bronny situation. I think the difference is that LeBron holds more power because he's actually still playing, so he has more leverage. And Deion's not playing anymore, and so he kind of overplayed his leverage and his influence. The NFL's like, we don't need you. Like, your career is set and done. We don't have to acquiesce to you because you tell us so. So this is just as much an indictment on Deion as it is on anyone else. I think that he has been an amazing father. He has provided his son with an amazing platform and clearly gifting them with great talents and skills. But even people who do most things right sometimes get one thing wrong, and that one thing wrong can be pivotal to certain circumstances for the people who are affected by this. And I think in this sense, Deion played his cards wrong in trying to get his son to emulate him in not only the way he played the game, but the way he was off the field. And I think it kind of bit him in the butt. It bit him in the butt a bit. And this kind of speaks, and that's also what happened to LeBron and Bronny. The whole Stephen A, the criticism around Bronny, fair or unfair. If LeBron had known that his son is not him and would have just let it played out naturally, I think Bronny would be would have experienced something else. However you feel about that situation, you have to admit LeBron's approach to it certainly contributed to what wound up unfolding. And I think this is the same case here. I think I've heard Coach Sanders talk about that he is a Christian. I am too. And I think the biggest lesson to learn from Jesus is humility. And I think there's been this whole wave of trying to make this a race thing. I heard Chad Ochocinco rattle off some comment that either he read on Instagram or someone sent to him in regards to this is what happens when a free black man tries to exert his place in the world. The system will always put you down. I don't think it has to do anything at all with that. All of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now are black. And I say the top 3 are black. And all of them now have a run element, which was originated by the black quarterback. Well, not originated, but made famous by the black quarterback. So I don't think it's a race thing. I think it's a character thing. Even if the assumption about the character is wrong, which I do think that there's some of that here. I do think Shaduer is a good kid. However, it's just not good optics to have your son in some room that looks like a retired legend, and not one of a kid starting out his journey. And he's got a big chain on, and it's all about him, and he's not there. He doesn't have a girlfriend. Most of these guys are like engaged. They have some significant. They just show stability, and all you saw with Shaduer was pizzazz and razzle dazzle and me. I don't know if I'm a GM. I want that, particularly if he's not a Class A quarterback. If I'm not seeing on the field what I would out of, Andrew Luck or Caleb Williams or even Peyton Manning, if I'm not seeing that on the field, Patrick Mahomes, then the way it looked like for me, the cameras, all these things they got going on, it looked like a wide receiver or a linebacker or a cornerback. And cool, but you're not that. You're the quarterback. You're going to be the face of the franchise. And the quarterback position, out of all the talents that you want your quarterback to have, the biggest one you want him to have is maturity and stability, because they have to lead others in the way they show up. And there's one kind of brewing right now, right? We have Peyton Manning and Eli Manning's nephew over at Texas. Seems like he's going to be a pretty good prospect, go to the league. Do we think on the day that, and leading up to the draft, that the Manning family will handle him the way Deion handled Shaduer? My biggest question is this. Let's say Tom Brady's eldest son, Jack, turns into a huge prospect, football or basketball. Not going to happen. It doesn't seem like his sons are that athletic. Do you think Tom Brady would allow his son to count his bravado and his ring, especially if he's a quarterback? Or do you think Tom will instill his mentality that you still got to earn it? Strip everything from the walls. You haven't done nothing yet. See, that's the difference, though. I think privilege can come in different ways. And one of the things that I think Tom Brady, and specifically because I know his story the best, while he lacked a lot of things, one thing he did not lack was the proper mentorship and stability back at home. He clearly had incredible parents, and because the mentality he took on, and people like to say, well, Shaduer is a way higher touted prospect than Tom Brady. Debatable. Maybe physically a little bit, but Tom was much more accomplished and had a much better argument for him to be picked higher in the 6th round. He went to Michigan, led them to bowl games, won the bowl games, earned captain position, and his stats were off the charts as far as completion percentage, accuracy, and clutch moments. Definitely warranted a much higher pick. So you can make the same argument you're making for Shaduer, you can make it for Tom. This is not unprecedented. But the biggest thing, I think, Deion Sanders, he made the mistake in trying to recreate his reality in his son, and his son's reality is totally different. I think if you say you're a follower of Jesus Christ, remember, Jesus walked into Jerusalem on a donkey. Humility is your greatest weapon, no matter how great you are. So on draft night, take off the chain, strip off all the marketing, sit on a couch with your family, with your dad, with your aunts, with whoever's important to you, and get drafted. And stop calling yourself a legend before you are one. It's not like you're setting yourself. Let's just say that Shaduer had been picked in the 1st round or the 2nd round, and he walks into a locker room and confirmed with all the things he thought were going to happen, walks in, and every one of the guys there, the wide receivers, all the guys who had to really claw and scrape for everything that they got, they're you know how they're looking at him. This fucking rich boy, spoiled brat. Let's see what he really got. What brings me to my last point. I think this is the best thing that could have happened to Shaduer Sanders. I think it's the best thing that could have happened to him. Because I think humility, particularly when you're someone talented and gifted like Shaduer is, humility is a superpower. It makes you more relatable. It makes you more likable. And most importantly, it makes you hungrier. Had Shaduer gone in the 1st or 2nd pick like Manziel did or Baker Mayfield, he was going to have a rough go at it, because all the hype that was heaped on him before the draft, he was going to believe it and going to bring that into a NFL locker room as the golden child of an NFL legend who's now a quarterback. And that was going to be a lot of pressure. And his teammates were going to give him a hard time. But now, being drafted in the 4th round at pick 144 and having to sit there and be embarrassed nationally, this now gives him a chip and a relatability to the others. He can look at his other teammates. Look, I know what you went through. They didn't believe in me either. They thought I was this, that, and this. So this is the perfect opportunity, because it's not about money for Shaduer. I mean, he's going into the league already a millionaire from his NIL deals. And he's already rich. I mean, he's a Sanders. And he has his net worth isn't just about money. It's also his network, his dad's network. So he's good. This is about Shaduer having a opportunity. So if you ask me, this is the greatest thing to happen to Shaduer. On top of everything that I just listed, his dad didn't do him any favors. The whole NIL thing. He's already so cool, so sweet. He does have that from his dad. He's got the whole swag thing down. He's not as talented as his dad, but I feel like that was going to do him in. I think Shaduer needs to, his father can be his father. But as far as emulating somebody in the position that he's about to go into in the NFL, I think he needs to look to guys like Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning in particular, who's a legacy guy. He came in with an approach to the game that was steeped in humility and hard work. He was the number one pick. No one argued how much Peyton Manning loved the game. That's someone that Shaduer should look to. Not Deion Sanders, because Deion Sanders was up against different circumstances. Coming from the bottom, first generation, first one to make it out, insane athletic ability, and his bravado served him to propel his confidence and his legacy to where it needed to be to break the barriers he needed to break. But those barriers were already broken by the time Shaduer got there. Now he's like trying to break barriers that don't exist. His job now isn't to do what his father did. His job is to honor his father's legacy by doing it in a way that his father never could. So to me, this is the best thing that happened to him. He has a lot of things going for him, but he did need a little bit of humbling. From all the reports, he didn't interview well. That's not acceptable for the quarterback position. Ultimately, this is the greatest thing, and I think Shaduer has an opportunity to become a great NFL quarterback, and now he's got a chip that he can wear. Now he could, in a different way, but now he's got a little Deion, because Deion, you come from the bottom, come from the hood, there's a natural chip there. That chip wasn't there for Shaduer before. He's a spoiled kid, talented kid. Solid parenting, but his dad in the end let his original hubris affect his objectivity on how to handle his son going into the draft. Even if you wanted to control where he went, and there was a way different way to go about it than the way that Deion did. And so I put a lot of this on Deion Sanders' shoulder, but however, God always has a plan, and it looks like this is going to really work out. All of this is not to put Shaduer down. This is actually saying, man, the cards are there. This is perfect, actually. Like, would Tom Brady been Tom Brady if he didn't get drafted in the 6th round? I don't know. Because I don't think he would have been Tom Brady without Bill Belichick. He might have been okay, but who was going to coach him the way Bill did? And now Shaduer goes into a situation in Cleveland where they've been starving for a hero. They've been starving for a hero in Cleveland. It's not Miami. It's not New York. It's not LA. So it's about putting on your hard hat and going to work. And maybe Myles Garrett now stays. And maybe in 5 years, we're like, man, what a mistake. How many teams pass on Shaduer Sanders? And that's an amazing story. But there is some accountability that has to be taken on the side of the Sanders family for how they handled all this. From the workouts to the dad Deion Sanders' pre-conversations to the whole circus that they put together for the draft party. It's just not a good look. If I was an NFL GM, I don't think I would have drafted Shaduer for a second. I would have been like, let me see if he's there in the 3rd. So at least if we get him a little humble. It is what it is, man. You're not bigger than the shield. No one is. And that's okay. That's how it should be. Everything is a reflection of the bigger thing, right? None of us are bigger than God. None of us are bigger. And if football is about to grant you an opportunity to give you a megaphone for the rest of your life, then at no point should you ever think you're bigger than the game. But I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching. And as always, like, subscribe, and share if you liked what you watch here today. I appreciate you. As always, I'm your boy Samuel Maria, and this is the Sportcast, where we do our best to discuss sports topics so that we can get back to what actually matters, and that's getting back to the game.